With everything that is happening in the economy, I cannot say that we are surprised. But having said that, what we've noticed is the total market for new car sales last month was down by 6.1%. The majority of the decline came in the passenger cars, where majority of the consumers purchased. So that was an 8.8% drop. We saw a slight uptick on light commercial vehicles, which is the bakkie market, of 0.7%, and we saw a slight drop in the heavy commercial vehicles. So having said that, we've seen quite a large demand on credit applications. In fact, we experienced the record, of 138,000 incoming application forms. However, the challenge comes around some of the economic issues affecting the consumer, which include a decline in deterioration of quality of the application forms, as well as some of the credit bureau rating deterioration, which is attributed or speaks to how the consumer is under pressure.
So it's not surprising, considering that GDP has fallen down. We know that there are very, very high levels of household indebtedness. 1 in every 3 consumers is behind with their payments. It's obviously not surprising that you've seen that. Are you expecting to see this kind of trend? Should the economy not do better?
Well, having said all of that, and with everything that we know as well, we can't say that we are surprised. The consumer remains relatively under pressure as household debt, continues to drop, rather in a sluggish manner, if I can call it that. The latest increase in prime lending rates of 0.25% last week will further add a bit of stress to the consumer, especially those that are indebted, in the sense that their vehicle finance, they've got home loans, credit cards, and many other expenses.
Let's talk about the motor industry as a whole. You've mentioned earlier on that you've seen that there's been high increase in credit applications. Have you seen people downgrading their vehicles by any chance?
We've seen a number of factors from a WesBank perspective, one of which has been a gradual shift towards demonstration vehicles or used cars, and that's also can be attributed to some people downgrading. There's been quite a lot of activity in the light commercial vehicles, especially coming from the 2 biggest brands. There's quite a lot of stimulation that manufacturers are putting in terms of stimulating sales and also attracting consumers through a number of marketing incentives.
This makes me curious about the default rate. When you see, as we have spoken, about the economic climate that we find ourselves in, do you find that the default rate is by any chance affected?
With this kind of economic down cycle, it can be expected that default rates will start to show an upward trend. However, I think I'm comforted to confirm that those are all under being managed quite proactively, and we are also encouraging consumers where they feel or where they come into difficulties that they contact the bank so that we can find alternative solutions for them.
Let's talk about the motor industry as a whole, components, passenger vehicles, the automotive sector, which is all clubbed together, I'm assuming. We know that the manufacturing sector, for instance, has not been doing well, and by extension, it feeds into the automotive sector, and that, by extension, feeds into the motor industry. How have you seen the decline in the manufacturing sector affecting the sector?
The automotive industry is quite vast and quite wide, as you can imagine, and plays an incredible role in the entire GDP of the country. Having said all of that, we've been quite blessed with not having strikes that we've experienced before. So there really hasn't been much effect on the manufacturing side of things, because vehicles are available to consumers for sale, and the manufacturers have been playing a very active role through the marketing incentives of promoting vehicles for consumers to purchase vehicles.
Do you feel that there's enough support from government to the sector?
It will be. I don't think it will be proper for me to make that. To make a commentary on behalf of WesBank where government is concerned, because they're heavily involved with the manufacturers, not as much with the banks.
Let's talk about the employment trends in the sector. Do you find the sector absorbing more and more jobs? We've just seen last week that the mining sector is shedding more jobs given the kind of pressure that that sector is under. Do you expect to feel any pressure when it comes to the motor industry or the automotive sector?
I think we'll look at it in a number of ways. Unemployment or shredding of jobs is a real threat to the economy of the country at large. So one must also understand that most of the workers we're talking about have most probably got vehicle finance or home loans or anything, or indebted to a bank one way or another. So when talks of what we are hearing lately, especially in the mining sector and many other industries, start to surface, we obviously try and be proactive in terms of how we manage our debt, our book, and how we manage those consumers, and try and ring fence at times the kind of industry so that we understand what it can mean to default rates as well. So I think it's a much wider issue than just looking at the industry, but also I think within the banking space.
Simphiwe, let's talk to our audience about the kind of advice that WesBank can give to them. One maybe has just acquired a new passenger vehicle, if they just realized maybe they've just been retrenched or things are not going so well financially. How can you advise them to manage their payments better?
I think from a WesBank perspective, there's a number of things that we track, and one being the mobility cost indicator. Whilst the fuel price has gone down slightly, I think it would be advisable for the consumers not to bank too much on the drop of the fuel prices, because it is heavily driven by the exchange rate, the dollar exchange rate. So the one key component is for consumers to ensure they do their homework properly before they go and purchase cars. So what do I mean by that? I mean, how much will the installment be? What will the insurance cost? Does e-toll play a role? What will the tires cost if I need to replace them? So I think one has got to adopt a longer-term view in terms of what the motoring costs, and if there should be any potential rises in interest rates going forward, what does it mean to me as a consumer?
Sasol has announced earlier this